Welcome to the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast. We have a big show for you guys today. Our second annual 2QB Superflex Strategy plus mock draft episode. I'm Raj, joined by Nak. We are ready to draft. This is a big weekend, Labor Day weekend, where there's a ton of fantasy football drafts going on. So we wanted to equip you with as much information as possible heading into your 2QB, heading into your Superflex leagues. So we're going to dive right into it. First segment, we're going to talk about just basically the difference between a 2QB and a Superflex league. On our end, at the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast, our home league is a 2QB league. 2QB leagues, the difference between those and Superflex leagues is the fact that you have to start 2QBs. So you see QB runs much stronger in the first part of the draft. Also with a super flex, you don't necessarily have to start a QB at that second super flex position. If you want, you can maybe just roll with two QBs on during your season. And if you have like a Bijan Robinson, you have a Josh Jacobs, and you have another bona fide either WR1 or WR2 or RB1 and RB2, you could fit that guy into the flex spot. So we're going to focus mostly on 2QB leagues in terms of the strategy. We'll try to sprinkle in a little bit of Superflex aspect as well. But the goal here is we're going to go through kind of QB tiers, the first tier, second tier, third tier. And we're just going to talk and have a discussion in terms of, where do we want to pick certain guys? What's the jumping off point between, going with a tier one player or maybe taking a skill position at the running back or wide receiver position. So Nak, we're going to start with our first tier. We called this tier the cheat codes. We have Josh Allen, who currently in sleeper leagues has an ADP of basically is the number one overall pick in 2QB leagues. Lamar Jackson with an ADP of 2. Jaden Daniels is going 6 overall. Joe Burrow is just going about 6.3 overall. And then there's Jalen Hurts at 10.3. I don't know about you, Nak, but I added Joe Burrow in here. He doesn't have the running cheat code, but his passing is so prolific. Almost 5,000 yards, over 40 touchdowns. If he's healthy, he's going to get to that point. So I think we would all agree that that's kind of the first cheat code tier. That those are the first 5 quarterbacks. I'm curious, Nak, what is the jumping off point in terms of, those first 4 or 5 picks where you would say, maybe I'll go with a Jamar Chase or Bijan Robinson or Jameer Gibbs or Saquon Barkley?
I think you said it right. Those are the top 5 QBs. Obviously, the first 4 you named all have rushing upside, so you definitely want a piece of those because they're in a class of their own. If you're talking about Allen and Lamar, you're talking about the last 2 MVPs of the league. Allen has been top 2 in fantasy for the last 5 years now, so you're getting a complete stud, and that it is consistent in there. 27 TDs in the last 2 seasons is a lot of rushing TDs to go along with his passing. So I think in terms of the class and where it drops off, I think it is after Burrow. And I do like that you included Burrow because they do figure to pass a lot. And you're right. If he does stay healthy, he is in that top 5 range and could push even for, number 1 overall numbers.
I think he was a QB 2 or 3, depending on the type of league you have, whether it's 5 or 6 points TDs. But he was electric last year.
And their defense, they re-signed Hendrick today, or they gave him a raise, but their defense didn't really get much better. So they figure to be in a lot of shootouts during the year. I know they also start slow usually, but he's always good for. I think he had like 7 straight games last year where he passed for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, something like that. Or at least 3 touchdowns a game. So you're getting consistency at that position. So definitely it's those 5 and then it drops off. And in most 2QB leagues, those will be the 5 players off the board not in any particular order, but those should be or likely to be the ones off the board. But once that Burrow or Hurts comes off the board, then yes, there's definitely a drop in the QB at the QB position. Whereas you're going to get
we'll get to that. But before we get to that, Nak, I have two things I want to mention. Sure. First, a question to you: is it a coin flip between Allen and Lamar?
Yes.
Okay. So it's just pick your preference. It's more so like who do you want to root for during the season, I guess.
Yeah, honestly, Lamar also showed a lot more with his arm last year than he's ever done. So that's something else. And I guess he's got maybe a better supporting cast than Josh Allen has. So there's that. But I mean, Derrick Henry is still there. So Derrick Henry definitely vultures a little bit
Yeah.
from Lamar Jackson. So but no, definitely those five. And then I wouldn't go after a QB. I'd like you said, I'd go after a Jamar Chase or a Bijan Robinson type player.
Yeah. I think we're both in like what we're both saying here in terms of like the initial strategy is if you have top five, go with the QB. This is against what I've done typically. I've always waited. But the reason why I'm not waiting this year, and I know our Bush League Huddle friends, they don't believe me. They think
I still don't believe you.
they think I'm fugazing it. If you don't believe me, I feel like I'm being a really good liar right now. But I looked at our Bush League Huddle draft last year. Allen went 101, so first overall.
To me.
Hurts went, yeah, to you. Hurts went seventh pick, seventh overall. So somehow Lamar went fourth pick in the second round.
Yeah, that still shocks me.
Makes no sense. I don't want to even go through why that happened. Daniels was justifiable third round.
End of the third, yeah.
End of the third. Burrow was early in the third. Craziness. That is not happening this year. I don't think
No.
I've ever seen like a top five as solid this year as I've seen it. So that brings us to our next tier. So the next tier, I'm calling this next tier the mid-range QB ones, the next big thing.
The
So we
next
have
big thing.
Mahomes, who has an ADP of 19.4, Knicks an ADP of 30.7, and Baker Mayfield an ADP of 31.6. So these are current sleeper ADPs for 2QB or super flex leagues. If you look at last year, you could have gotten actually Mahomes was going 105, so fifth pick overall. Knicks was actually a round 8 steal last year. He ended up being QB7. So Nak, if you think of the skill players that are going around those ADPs right now, you have Derrick Henry, Nico Collins, Drake London, AJ Brown, Jonathan Taylor, to name a few. What do you do with this tier? If you are at the sixth, seventh, eighth pick, are you continuing this run of QBs after the top five? Or is this where you say, you know what? Maybe I'll go get a Derrick Henry. Maybe I'll go get a Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, so as I was mentioning before, after this drop off of those five QBs, you kind of have like 10 to 15 QBs almost that are like almost the same player. So that could finish kind of wherever in those numbers. So let's say the five QBs go off the board and you went with a Bijan Robinson. And on the turn, you're either faced with a Mahomes, a Knicks, or Mayfield, or like you said, a Derrick Henry slides there, or a Jonathan Taylor slides there. I think it's more valuable to you knowing that all of the five guys that picked the QB beforehand are going to need skill players. You can have a Bijan Robinson, Derrick Henry backfield, and then knowingly, probably they will probably have to take two skill positions, knowing that coming all the way back, they won't be able to get those guys or those type of guys. So they're probably not going to go QB. So you could probably get a Mahomes, a Knicks, or a Mayfield again in the third round when it comes back to you, knowing that these skill positions are coming off the board.
You think third round? You think those guys are going to be available in the third? Mahomes,
Well, think about it.
the
I'm
way
just
we
saying,
the way we
if
glazed on Mahomes
but
last
I'm
week.
saying if five of them go off the board in round one, I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
There's bound to be someone on the turn taking one of these guys, right? There's going to be a Baker taken for sure, something. But if you bypass it and get that running back situation, you're coming back. You might get that tier 3, but then you get into like the Herberts, the Purdy's, the what that's still a pretty solid guy. And then now you have a Henry and Bijan Robinson, whereas these guys will probably end up with a lesser running back or wide receiver and have that top end QB. But I don't know. You have to play. I feel like you have to play a different strategy when it comes to there and try to get best bang for your buck rather than on Mahomes or Knicks, and then you come back and you
yeah.
don't have a wide receiver. Like who you taking.
So that next tier that you just kind of talked about, the Herbert and Kyler, we call that the land of hopes and headaches tier. So they they kind of preclude, or I guess, they're right after the initial run of, let's call it 8 QBs, right? The top 10, there's eight QBs for, like, let's say the first round, right? And not everyone's going to choose a QB. So naturally, there you might see a Knicks, you might see a Mayfield. I don't know if you'd see a Mahomes, but you might see them at the turn, and even in the third round. But out of Herbert, who's going 41st overall, Kyler, who's going 50th, Purdy is going 51st, Goff is going 53, Dak 61, and Fields at 80. And even Fields, it feels a little bit weird to be in that tier now, considering how he performed in the preseason. Who are you more comfortable with as your QB1?
I think I'm gonna go with Herbert. I think he's gonna be the steady Eddie of the field here. Close second would be Fields, but he did, like you mentioned, had a rough preseason, still struggling with a bit of accuracy. So I know you're not taking him really for the passing, you're taking him more for the rushing. So that could be something where, as I mentioned, you grab two running backs or a running back wide receiver, you get, Bijan and Neighbors, let's say, or Bijan and Brian Thomas Jr. You come to the turn and you potentially get a Fields or a Herbert. Goff kind of scares me with new coordinator. I don't know if I'm ready to take him that high. Dak, as I mentioned, if he stays healthy, I think I have him in the top 10 conversation this year. If he plays the whole season with Pickens, excuse me, and CeeDee Lamb. So, but definitely my steady Eddie on this list would be to target Justin Herbert.
Yeah. So if we look back at our Bush League Huddle draft in 2024, Dak went early third. Mentioned Burrow already, early third. Still don't know how that made sense.
Yeah.
Purdy was mid third, so the 8th pick of the third round. Herbert was the 9th pick of the 5th round, and Kyler was the second round, late second. I don't see Kyler going that high. I think the trust on Kyler has diminished quite a bit.
Yeah,
and that has become more of a running offense. The Arizona Cardinals. I agree with you, Herbert, and we talked about it in our AFC West show. I think Herbert. There's a lot of. I think he's being undervalued, and I think he could have a really solid season with the weapons that they added. Purdy will be interesting because there seems like a lack of weapons.
yeah.
But I think that's an offense that might want to throw the ball, and of course Dak is Dak. If Dak is healthy, MVP candidate. He's in 2 of the past, I believe, 4 years or so. He's been pretty much a top 3 QB in fantasy. So, and in terms of like skill positions that are around those ADPs. Again, you have to weigh, do I go pick my first QB and around those ADPs? And, we're talking again between like the 40th and 60th ADP, or do I go with a Garrett Wilson? Do I go with a Tyreek Hill? Kenneth Walker, the third, Devontae Adams, Tetara McMillan. After naming some of those players, I think that's where I'd be more likely to try to get my first QB if I passed on the initial 5, and then I passed then on like the next, the mid-range QB ones in Mahomes, Knicks, and Mayfield, where, I'm uneasy on Wilson, I'm uneasy on Hill, Kenneth Walker the third is getting injured, Devontae Adams, love him, but he's old, and McMillan, it's is a rookie, so I think it's an interesting debate on that front, and then we have the next tier, which the young guns tier. So I'd be hard pressed to choose any of these guys as QB1. Caleb Williams is going at 52. Trevor Lawrence is going at 53. Drake May is going at 57. CJ Stroud is going at basically 60, 6th round. I like CJ Stroud at 6th round. I think he could possibly fit as a QB1. Jordan Love is going at 69. I think he's shown QB1 potential as well. But then there's JJ McCarthy, Penix, Bryce Young as well, who rounded out. He finishes at ADP 98. Are you in agreement with me, Nak, where it's, CJ Stroud coming off a tough sophomore season, new coordinator coming from the Rams and Nick Caley? Apparently, they're going to give him much more liberty at the line of scrimmage to call protections and make different checks at the line. I'm feeling pretty bullish about Stroud. I don't know about you.
Yeah, look, I obviously it's been well documented that I didn't like Stroud coming into his sophomore year last year. He definitely did struggle. There's definitely some weapons, so some young guns too on the outside as weapons. I definitely agree with you. I do see him having a bounce back year. Am I ready to slot him in as my QB1? Well, it's going to depend on how the draft breaks to you and who's available at the position. Because as you mentioned, uh, when you're looking at a position, if QB start taking a run off the board, and then you're stuck with kind of these skill positions that you're so on, you might have to grab one of these guys. But I think I'm more. I think I like Caleb and Lawrence there at the 52, 53. And if you just circle back to the QBs at the top, like beyond Dak and like Herbert, I think he could still push like Goff numbers and even Purdy with a lack of weapons. I see Caleb Williams and Lawrence maybe dethroning them and leapfrogging them this year. Like Lawrence is kind of like make or break and like has everything at his disposal now. And I don't know. I've said it. I'm expecting big things from Lawrence, so I wouldn't be too upset with Caleb or Lawrence as my QB1. I think
Oh
there's
man,
worse ways to
Mac,
go. You're taking a
you're
risk.
losing, brother.
You're
You're losing,
100%.
brother.
But hear me out. Hear me out. If you can
Nak,
get one of these
Nak, do you really
guys,
want to be sending gifs of Trevor Lawrence when
I
he's like after
really,
a
I
touchdown? Is
really,
that
I
how you're
really,
feeling this
really
year?
don't. I really, really don't. I would actually be sending them of sunshine. I wouldn't use Trevor Lawrence. I'd use sunshine from Remember the Titans. But this is it's just a situation where, like
Yeah,
I said, if you go running back, and then get a stud wide
yeah,
receiver, and then
yes,
on the turn back, you have one of these guys. Well, at least you have very valuable skill positions in order
yes.
to take that risk, right?
Fair, fair, fair.
If you're telling me that I've got none of those guys, then yes, I'm not going with Caleb Williams or Lawrence as my QB1.
Yeah, like as someone who's had, when I faced you in the finals 2 years ago, I had Goff, Carr, and Stroud. I was lucky enough that Goff had a pretty good year. Stroud was rookie season, but I had to rely on Derek Carr a bit. That was painful. And then last year, I had to mostly rely on Geno Smith, Anthony Richardson, and Drake May. That
Right.
was like the most painful 2QB experience I've ever had, right? So, as someone who's going in here in our Bush League Huddle fantasy draft, with fourth overall, I mean, I'm taking Burrow or Hurts. Like, just it's over. I'm telling you right now, it's over. But anyways, I would love to bookend Hurts or Burrow with Stroud, or Hurts or Burrow with Caleb. So in my case, does that mean that maybe I'm taking a pass on skill positions a little bit? Yes, but you have to identify some of the skill positions that either you could find within that 2, 3, 4 range, or guys that you can maybe get at a bargain later, like a Truba Hubbard, who's somehow is going, I think, in the as like a fifth round ADP. I'm relatively high on Devonta Smith this year as like a in the 65 range. Cortland Sutton's going at 69, right? So if you want to really solidify your QB's position with a bona fide stud within that top 8 that we mentioned, and then get someone who has relative upside, like a Stroud, like a Love, who are due for bounce back seasons, then just be prepared to have some guys who are maybe going a little bit under the radar, some post hype sleepers from past seasons that are looking to bounce back this year. So
Yeah, you may have to overpay for some of those guys as well, but that's the kind of price you pay for solidifying your QB position.
for sure. And I think we didn't talk about, like, McCarthy to me is at ADP 72. That's a huge risk in terms
Crazy
of
high.
crazy
Crazy high.
high. I don't want him as my. You'd be crazy to want him as your QB1. Even QB2 is a bit risky.
Yeah,
Like, to me,
that's
he's a QB3 to start the season.
give me Penix or Stroud
So
or
so
Young at the QB2
so
rather than
before we
him.
jump to the next tier, to talk, like, say what you want to say about Penix and Young, if you have anything on that front.
Yeah, look, again, Penix came in strong at the end of the year, so there's not too much tape on him yet. So he could still come in and have that like real rookie season, as we say. And Bryce Young last year after the benching came in and had a great down the stretch in fantasy football points wise. So uh, he could run a little bit. They both can, like a little bit. Penix less, but I mean, when you're talking McCarthy, who hasn't taken a snap yet at ADP 72, and these guys are going 20 and 25 picks later, I'm still like, I understand Kevin O'Connell is the QB whisperer, but I just don't. I just and now you have Addison who's going to be missing a few games.
Yeah, a
They're
few
really
games.
thin at wide receiver. JJ is also been hampered with a hamstring injury, so
Yeah,
I
we
don't
didn't.
think that bodes well for McCarthy to start the year. That's for sure.
Yeah, we didn't talk much about JJ because we did our NFC North preview a while ago. But when talking about like the jump off point from the top five, I don't know. I'm curious to see where people are going to pick JJ. I'm a bit worried. I'm worried about JJ. I'm worried about Malik Neighbors from a soft tissue standpoint in camp. Those are, as we know, with Christian McCaffrey, as we are seeing with Devon Achan. Those are. I'd be not. Is it wary or weary?
it's it's wary.
I'd be wary. I'd be wary of
I
of,
hope
of
that
the.
person's listening.
We'll finish off with the last two tiers, and we'll jump into the mock draft, which I think will help to kind of give a picture of what we're talking about. Tier 5, the mid range back end QB2s, the fragile vets, injury prone and aging risks. Only three guys in this tier: Tua, Geno, and Stafford. In like
These are
two,
also tough.
yeah, like I'm speechless right now because like we talked about Geno in our AFC West preview. I talked about him. I think he's gonna have a great real life year. I think fantasy wise, especially with whatever's happening with Jacoby Myers. I think they're gonna run the ball a lot with Genti and Pete Carroll as coach. I think Stafford, his injury is very, very concerning. It has made me be judicious on drafting Puka Nakua and the aforementioned Devontae Adams. If Stafford, if there's risk that Stafford might not play, whether it's a portion of this season or this could be his last season, the way he was talking about it before, right? So, and then there's Tua, who when he's healthy, he's pretty good. Like he has thrown for, I believe, was it 4,600 yards he threw a few years ago with the Dolphins, I
I think
believe.
so.
It just, the injury history is just the worst that there is for a QB. And then the tier 6, we have stashes and deep super flexes. Although some of the players we'll mention could go also in the fragile vets. But there's Cam Ward, who I very much like in college. I think he's had a really solid preseason. He looks like a gunslinger out there. Jackson Dart has also had a very good preseason, although he's not going to be starting the year. It'll be Russell Wilson. He's also in this tier right after your Aaron Rodgers, Knack. And then there's Sam Darnold, Joe Flacco, and Daniel Jones, who round it out. Would you be, let's say you were in a situation where you said, I'm going to fully punt QB within the first half, even more, within the first 8 rounds of my draft. And then you end up with a Geno Smith, Aaron Rodgers QB duo. How confident would you be in that?
Oh, not very confident. I don't even know if they'd be even there going into round 8. A lot of people already have their QB3s locked up around that area. Look, Geno Smith, I think you hit it on the head. He's gonna have a good real life season. I don't see it fantasy wise. Rogers, I think, is like a wild card right now. I feel I just don't know how it's going to go. Is this going to be like what it was supposed to be with the Jets before? Like, he's now 1 year removed from the Achilles. Apparently, his arm is still look like rocket passer. So
Yeah, it does.
he still looks great in that regard. But is the offensive line going to hold up where he's not just dinking and dunking the ball? Is he going to be able to air it out? Is he going to mesh well with DK Metcalf? Is that going to work out? Are they going to bring in another wide receiver? They were they were speaking today about him calling a Packers beat writer about is Romeo Dobbs going to make the team? Is he going to be available? So it's just really funny how he always circles back to his guys. But I mean, no. A short answer, I guess, would be no. I would not be confident Geno Smith, Aaron Rodgers as my QBs unless my roster is like I lit it up the first 8 rounds of the draft.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I will say Cam Ward is a great pick to have if maybe you started with Mahomes or Knicks or Baker. You don't want to have Cam Ward as your QB2 to start the season. So if pre-draft you're eyeing Cam Ward, ensure you get one of those top 8. Maybe add Dak into that as well. Like I would love to have like a Dak, maybe a Drake May or a CJ Stroud, and then have Cam Ward as just by sheer luck that he maybe pops off and maybe Dak is injured or maybe CJ Stroud is a little unsettled to start the season. I love Cam Ward as a guy who, similar to Penix, as a guy who maybe could break out and have a monster, not a monster, but a relatively good rookie season or sophomore season in the case of Penix. But I would agree with you for the rest of those guys. Looking back at last year in our Bush League Huddle draft, Rodgers was round 6, Gino was round 8. So that's around where I would see them. Rodgers, I think, going a little bit later. Russell Wilson, round 14. Sam Darnold was taken at an absolute discount by you, I believe.
That was me, yeah.
That was you at round 12. That shows that late stashes do matter. You can get players late and they do break out. So in every tier, there's going to be someone who is bona fide. There's going to be some busts. There's going to be, in the later tiers, some guys who break out or have an unexpected season. So
there's going to be injuries.
There's going to be injuries, absolutely. And that's the other thing. Like, do you need 3 or 4 QBs? I would say in a 2 QB league, because you absolutely have to start a QB, I would say like 3 is a must. 4 is, being safe. 5 is being Guido or me a few years ago. In a super flex, again, 3 QB, 2 QB, you could roll with 2 QBs if, you're getting guys who are relatively safe, relatively healthy all the time. But 3 is, I think, a good number as well, because again, you could plug in like a wide receiver, tight end, or running back on that front.
Again, it just all depends on where your draft falls at the end, because you could definitely get that 4th one, late, where people are not many people roster 4. So it depends how, who's available at the 4 spot. So
yeah. So if we're going to just summarize the final keys to dominate 2QB or Superflex as you enter into your drafts this weekend, top 5 QBs, absolutely round 1 worthy, and I think they should go in short order: 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th overall. After that, feel free to pivot because the skill position players are amazing this year. Don't chase the runs. Kind of value the picks that are coming up depending on the QBs that are there. Don't let other people overpay. Try to roster 3 to 4 QBs, especially if you're in a 12 team Superflex or 2 QB. God bless you for that. Target mid-round QBs like May, Nix, Love, guys who have ceiling. Can think Cam Ward and Michael Penix Jr. as well. And prepare. I've done a ton of mock drafts. I'm sure, Nak, you have as well. Do your mock drafts, figure out who are some of those values at the skill positions that you could take in the 60s, the 70s, and 80s. Nak, you ready?
Agreed. I'm ready.
So are you giving us your real draft order? You're going to put your real... No, you're not, eh?
No, 100% I'm not. I will pick... I would like to pick... let's say I'll pick 3rd in this equation. How's that?
Sure.
Does that sound fair?
Yeah. Did you claim it?
I did.
Okay. I am not a scaredy cat. Bring it on. So I'm going to pick in my real Bush League Huddle draft order. So I'm going to claim the 4th pick.
Okay. So maybe then, since we're so close by, I'll pick... let's go 9. How's that?
Okay.
We'll make it a little fun here.
All right.
Actually, I don't want to pick 9. Whatever, I'll just pick 9.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's see where it goes. Let's see if Mr. or Mrs. Sleeper listened to us. Whoa, Bijan at 3rd. Okay.
Interesting. That would have definitely not been my pick at 3, but
it's so we didn't talk about this earlier, but Daniels scares me. The sophomore slump thing, the Terry McLaurin thing really scares me a lot.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow, the offensive line, like if you could guarantee me Joe Burrow's healthy, I'll take him, no problem. Jalen Hurts, I have a sneaky feeling Hurts is going to have like a really good passing season because they're just not going to run enough. I think the tush push is still there, so let's go Jalen Hurts. Why not?
Daniels, Chase, Jefferson. Wow, where are the running backs going? No running back. So I've got here Gibbs, Barkley, and Gentry still on the board. With CD Lamb is still there after a few running. But you know what? For the fun of it, let's go Jameer Gibbs. So this is where I said it could be interesting. This is where I look at this, and you're on the turn. Now you have a Malik Neighbors there. You have a Brown Puka. There's Brian Thomas Jr. So do you want to grab even another running back? You pair him with Derrick Henry and just literally solidify your backfield. And this is going to be probably the best backfield in the league. Or you go with a wide receiver. For fun, I will take Derrick Henry. Here comes the run of wide receivers. Brock Bowers, 2.3.
That's. I mean, we talked about it last episode. Brock Bowers. That's super early. That's. You're not getting great value
there.
The value is just not there. Absolutely. I can't.
This is where I was talking about. You see, the QBs kind of went early, so now they've got to decide like, okay, I definitely need to take a skill position here, or am I really doubling down on QBs? The computer, unfortunately, definitely won't double down on the QB position. So we won't know for certain. Obviously, it's computers for the rest, but this is where you probably take a skill position and then decide: do I take another QB, thinking that there's going to be a huge run, or do I take two skill positions in a row?
So in the past, I think in our league, in the Bush League Huddle, I've seen. I feel like we see way fewer people go QB back to back. I just feel it's
Marco's done that. I think the last 2 or 3 years.
I think with Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson, I find it a bit debilitating in terms of the running backs and wide receivers that are left. In my case, Christian McCaffrey is available, and I'm not too far from the turn. If you can get Christian McCaffrey in the second round
at 2.7, you eat that. You eat that all day long.
You have to take it and just have some backup for afterwards.
Gentry went in the third round.
So Gentry at the third round, I like that a lot. I think that's very prudent. Since I already have my running back, I am going to take the wide receiver that everyone believes will be a potential WR1 this season, and it's Nico
Here comes
Collins.
Nico Collins.
Yeah, Nico Collins in the third round is amazing.
So again, here, I don't have a wide receiver. There's Jackson Smith and the Jigba available as your WR1. Do you really want him as your WR1? You can kind of keep looking. Then you can kind of see like, okay, well, the other guy in front of me also didn't take a QB. What's here? What am I going to look for? Now I'm guaranteed one of these 3 QBs at the top. So maybe I want to try to get a wide receiver. But right now it doesn't look very appetizing. I wouldn't want to start off with Marvin Harrison as my wide receiver 1. Even Garrett Wilson kind of scares me.
Garrett Wilson's very scary.
Yeah. So here, if I really wanted to go crazy, I would go Jonathan Taylor and have literally the best backfield in fantasy football.
I like that move. I love that move.
Knowing
I love that move because you're at the turn.
Yeah.
You're at
and
the
now
turn.
knowing that for sure Mahomes could have been an option to be taken, but now even with no wide receiver, you have to go. This is a 2 QB league. You have to go QB.
Yes.
I think Bo Nix is going to struggle, and I think Baker Mayfield has way too many weapons to be bad. So this is where I'll take Baker Mayfield and my first QB in the 4th round.
Yeah, I like that. And look, you're taking advantage of the fact that, again, the computer, I think in a real 2QB Superflex league, QBs are taken before that.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. But I think, taking advantage of what you have now, and it's also seeing what's in the queue how many positions you are left. And that's why a lot of players like being at the turn, because you could better identify what is available, who is coming up, and then what you can get after that second pick comes up. So
Yeah, I just went with value there. There was no way like Marvin Harrison was going to be my number one, and like Taylor figures to have more points than he does. So now my two running backs and my flex is sewn up, and I could just now start diving in with wide receivers.
for sure. So I took Hurts, McCaffrey, and Collins for second, third round. I have two options. I think I was down on T Higgins, and we talked about him in our AFC North show. If Higgins is healthy, he was, I think, top 5 in points per game last year. One of the reasons why I didn't like Chase as much is because Higgins, I could see him factoring in a lot and then reducing Chase's numbers. So I could either short my wide receiver 2 position here with Higgins. I don't like the running backs available at this point. I think I could wait a little bit. I don't like Breece Hall. James Hook, I think he's a touchdown regression candidate. And I think there's still too many QBs, right? Like this is where you don't have to over pick. So I quite like T Higgins here.
Interesting. Oh, another tight end.
Yeah, I mean George Kittle is, I think he was the number 1 tight end last year, number 2 tight end. So
he was number 2.
Yeah. I just love Chuba Hubbard at this spot. 54 ADP. It's right where I am at right now. Just super solid. I'm not too, after doing a bit of digging, I'm not too concerned with the Rico Dowdle factor.
No. Good Canadian boy.
Yeah. Yes. I could go with Terry McLaurin, but I am very wary of the Brandon Ayuk aspect last year.
Well done.
And the CD Lamb. So I'm gonna go Chuba Hubbard.
Nice pick.
Yeah. Evans, Laporta, Rice. Yep.
So for me, obviously, the run came for my running backs. I did take my QB. Again, in our home league, I'm probably taking another QB here. Just because there's going to be a huge run. There's just not enough that have been taken right now. But if I play the board and how it is, I definitely need a wide receiver. So top ones on the board: Devontae Adams, Detroya, McMillan, DJ Moore, and Metcalf. I see Devontae Adams scoring double-digit touchdowns this year. I know he's old. I know we talked about it old, but I think I'm getting value with him in the 5th. And I'm not scared of having him as my WR1 because of what my 3 running backs look like. So I'm going to go ahead and take Devontae Adams.
I like that. The Rams have become more of a running offense, but Puka Nacua, if you look at Puka Nacua's metrics, he doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. He seems a little bit allergic to touchdowns, and he gets injured quite often, and that's what would scare me.
Yeah. So after Devontae Adams, Metcalf would have maybe been someone I would have targeted here on the turn. I'm still going to go wide receiver here. I think it's needed. We do start 3 wide receivers in this league, so definitely have to stock the cupboard a little bit more. So here, what I would typically do is I would either go wide receiver if I didn't like someone here, I'd maybe shore up my second QB. But at this spot, I think Raj has made me a believer of this guy again. So I think I'm going to go ahead and add DJ Moore.
Good. Yeah, I like that pick. There's some Roma Dunze talk that I'm a bit concerned about. There's a lot flowing around where he could be the main guy in Chicago, but we won't know until we see it. So I have 2 running backs. I have 2 wide receivers. I have a QB. Still feel like I could wait on QB at this point with Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, Caleb Williams, and then the rest of the guys we talked about. So I debate between James Conner and yeah, you know, I'm gonna go James Conner. I'm gonna solidify that flex position and hope I could get a wide receiver on the turn. And if I'm lucky enough, I'll get my when I'm that's the gamble. I
You
was looking
thought
for.
so that would have been me. I was going for either DJ Moore or Cam's or Cortland Sutton because I knew he
Yeah,
wasn't going to get back to me, and I figured that's where you would have gone. But I thought you would have probably grabbed them before. But
yeah. I think well, the computer went Judkins, so I think they would have
yeah, he hasn't even
taken.
he hasn't even signed yet, so I don't even know how
Yeah,
that pick probably doesn't happen there. But
exactly. So here in the 7th round, again, I still find a bit too early for QB. I might wait another round. This is where there's Travis Hunter, Xavier Worthy, Jamison Williams. I feel they're all nestled into the same bucket. I am going to go with. Oh, this is tough. This is tough. Let's go with Jamison Williams. Let's take a little bit of a home run and see if maybe he becomes a
interesting.
WR2.
So there's a couple ways I can go here. There's still some high-end tight ends on the board in TJ Hawkinson, and I think Travis Kelce in the 7th round is pretty high value. We did say he's lost some weight and all that stuff, and then
He got engaged.
he got engaged. I still need a wide receiver. Again, the board is falling nicely in terms of QBs, so I'm not overly concerned right now. I think I still have a high-end tier 2 QB, so I think my guy will be available. So I will likely the running backs. I don't need anything from.
Yeah, you're good there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and shore up the tight end position, and I'm gonna go Travis Kelce.
You went Kelsey over Hawk?
Yeah, Hawkinson. There's a lot more injury history with him,
Hmm.
injury concerns. So I'm not too high on him. And then I was right about
So now you're in
QB
the
being
now you're in the 8th round for we'll just say that
not,
for
yeah,
those who are not on will be watching on YouTube.
yeah. Again, I'm 8th round. I could go QB here, but again, there's still quite a bit on the board here that I'm not in a hurry, and I really want to shore up that WR3 position. And I think I'm gonna go Calvin Ridley.
Mm. He's in line for a ton of targets.
Indeed.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So here, I got my 3 running backs. I got my 3 wide receivers. I am going to take a gamble in case Roma Dunze, the talk of him maybe being the guy in
If Roman
Chicago.
Dunze is him.
Yeah, if Roma Dunze is him indeed. So now in the 9th round, I'm annoyed. Addison is going to be a great value in the 9th round. He was on a points per game basis. He was really good last year, even despite reservations with JJ McCarthy. So now in the 9th round, there's Drake May, there's Jordan Love. This is where I take my tight end, and I'm gonna go with Tyler Warren. Shades of Jeremy Shockey with the long hair and the physical tight end play. Let's go.
Beautiful. So this is now towards the end of round 9, and I think a bit of advice is shore up your QB2 before you start picking bench players. I think that's how I've always tried to treat it. You don't want to see bench players before you shore up a very important position on your roster. And there is one guy here who hasn't been picked yet, who could have very, very big upside, and I would not mind pairing him with Baker Mayfield. I am going to take Justin Fields at value at the ninth round
Oh,
pick.
Knack. I don't know about that, man. Over Jordan Love?
Yeah,
You think the rushing upside is going to be that good, eh?
he was his last year in Chicago, which was 2 short years ago.
Yeah.
He finished as QB7
Yeah.
in fantasy. and his numbers were hovering at that 50% mark. So I have total confidence that he will come back and have, even top 12. If it's top 15 numbers, I'm ecstatic, right? As your with
Yeah.
your QB2. So I think top 15 is in the definite realm of possibility. Now I could go look at, what's lurking around in the running back land if I wanted to. I still only have 3 wide receivers, so just kind of check what's going on. Jacoby Myers kind of scares me a bit with the talk,
Mm.
the trade talks. I think, yeah, I'm still very confident in my running back room that I don't need to grab any of these guys. I think I'm going to go wide receiver and a guy I think who's going to have a big year, and it's going to be Matthew Golden,
Ooh, yes.
the only reliable receiver
Yeah.
on that roster.
Yeah, I hope they don't catfish us this year and still give him like a 10% target share and give everyone like a 15% target share. But I have high hopes on Matthew Golden as well. At this point, I think I have to take a QB. And between Jordan Love, JJ McCarthy, and Trevor Lawrence, this is kind of the, mid-tier, maybe could be QB1s, but very well entrenched as QB2s. Jordan Love is a perfect pick here for me with a lot of high upside if he could get back to his 2023 season.
Yeah, I think that was a great
Yeah.
pick.
Yeah.
Well, Ibuka was going to be my next pick, but he falls at 11.2.
Yeah, Abuka or Pearsall would have been great for me here. So now I could wait again on the QB3. At this range, I've been picking this guy my entire mock drafts. The reason why I did not feel the need to pick Kenneth Walker the third, Zach Charbonnet, I think he's going to take over the running back position when KW3 inevitably gets injured again.
Great pick. Great pick. So right now, my wide receivers are looking good. My running backs are still looking great, but the wide receivers right now at the top of the list are not really high on my list. A lot of injury-prone guys as well, so I might look elsewhere. You could look at tight end and solidifying and grabbing a second tight end. Not a lot of people do it. I'm not really one who does it all that often. And you know what? In my mock drafts, in and around this pick, I'm usually picking this guy here because he is going to lead the backfield. So having another lead back, I believe, in your back pocket, it doesn't hurt. So I am going to take J.K. Dobbins,
My league winner.
your league winner. And then after this, again, I'm going to go look in the QB cupboard to see what the QB3 looks like. So you have Michael Penix, Cam Ward, and Bryce Young still on the board, and I think I'm going to go with the guy who had a strong down the stretch season in Bryce Young and solidify my QB3.
One thing that's super important to check is the buys, especially obviously with your QBs. I find with skill positions,
It's not as important.
it's not as important, but when you're in a 2QB or Superflex, especially 2QB league, make sure you check the buys for your QBs. Make sure they don't have the same buys. I've been burned on
I
that
should
front
have
before.
I should have checked Mayfield and Fields are week 9.
Well, thankfully, this is a practice run, Mr. Nakarado.
Thankfully.
I'm going to take Mr. Nak's advice and shore up my QB3 position. I think I don't
Drum roll,
think
please.
I
This
well
is
I
Cam
know
Ward territory.
well I know Jalen Hurts has a very good floor. I think Jordan Love can have a good floor with less injuries and better wide receiver play. So for me, it's between who can maybe have a bigger upside between Michael Penix Jr. and Cam Ward. I can't even see my buys right now. I have to go on my team. Yeah, let's just go with Cam Ward. Let's just go with Cam Ward. Doesn't matter. It's not real. It's okay. It's a practice run. We're going to go with Cam Ward. And then coming back on the 13th pick. So my last 3 picks had Love 10th, Charbonnet 11th, Ward 12th. And now in the 13th round, let's see who we have. I have 4 running backs. I have 4 wide receivers. You know what?
I know what you're doing.
I'm gonna go with Michael Penix. Might as well. I got my guys. I
Oh,
got my guys.
he got him. He
I got my
got his
guys.
guys. He's
I
got
got
his guys.
I got an all black quarterback room too.
Truth be told here, I was going to go Kyle Pitts and steal a 13th round Kyle Pitts. Whoever took Kyle Pitts in the 13th round, that is really, really great value, I must say. Let's see. And then Josh Downs actually went. That would have been another guy I would be targeting in and around this area. Let's see. Again, kind of short up in the running back. I might need another wide receiver here. There's not one that's jumping right off the page to me.
Not in love with your wide receivers. I'm not gonna lie, Nick.
You don't have to be in love with them. They have to just do the job because my running backs are going to run train on this league.
Run train, I love it.
You know what? Let's. I don't really like anyone here.
This is a tough position now. Too early for defense?
Yeah. This is way too early for defense. Man, do I take a page out of your book and then grab a fourth QB? Might not be a bad deal. You know who I'm going to grab just for maybe some trade bait later down the line when it becomes the number one? I'm going to go Jaden Blue.
Yeah, that Cowboys backfield, I have no clue what's happening there. It's a hard pass for me.
You know what? For my last bench player, I'm going to go with my darling and hope that he cracks. I think you know where I'm going with this one, Raj.
Roman Wilson.
Isaac Tesla.
Oh, Tesla. Oh my.
He had a great preseason.
So that's a great segue, Nak. I think one tip for a lot of managers, either make sure you scroll down all the way in every position or just set up a queue ahead of time, because Tesla is a guy you have to scroll down quite a bit to find. And there's a few other guys like that. So set up a queue beforehand and be prepared. I'm settled at QB. I don't feel like I need anyone else unless I messed up the buys, but that's a story for another day. This is more of a depth play for me right now. And I'm going to go with a guy who I think is going to potentially be the lead in the backfield in Duval. That's Mr. Tank Cartavius Bigsby.
And whoever just took Nick Chubb at 14 is flying in value as, what was his name? Who's the other running back?
Mixon.
Joe Mixon is out for minimum 4 weeks to start the year. So, and they say could potentially be longer.
Yeah, I think they're gonna try Woody Marks, and they're gonna try Dare Abungawale. I'm sure they're gonna try Damian Pierce as well. I think it'll be interesting when they're. And I'm going to pick very similar. And this is where you have to scroll, because if you're just kind of looking at him, the first few players, you're not going to see him. I'm going to pick another player who may end up being the lead in the backfield, whether it's week one or
can I guess?
You can. He's a Badger.
Dylan Sampson.
No, he's a Wisconsin Badger.
Oh, Wisconsin Badger. Excuse me.
And that is Mr.
Where is he?
You're not going to get him, eh? You're not going to get it. Braylon Allen. There's been too much noise about Breece Hall, and Allen has looked fan. He's trucking dudes. He's outrunning guys at like 6'3", 240, 250 pounds. He looks like Derrick Henry out there.
Nice pick. And, I did it to myself, so I think I'm going to have to go with a QB and one who's not on bye week 9 or week 12. I think I'm going to take, I don't know why he'd still be here at this point, but you know what? Just because I want to have a little rush on Sundays, I'm going to grab Aaron Rodgers. And And then for my defense, well, first one's left on the board. I'll take the Steelers defense.
There you go. Here we go.
At least I have a couple Steelers,
Here we go.
And notice I did not take a kicker because I don't want any of that noise.
Exactly. I am going with the same strategy. More and more of our Bush League Huddle mates are going with the same strategy of not drafting a kicker. So defense will definitely be the last pick. I am going to go with, let's go with the Texans. They had one of the best pass defenses in the league last year. Let's go with them. And that'll do it. So I will mention my team and not going to be, you'll give yours just to recap. Both my QBs, I have Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love. Starting running backs, Christian McCaffrey and Chuba Hubbard. Starting wide receivers, Nico Collins, T. Higgins, Jameson Williams. I'm kind of regretting that pick. Tight end, I have Tyler Warren. And at my flex, I have James Conner. And then in my bench, I have Rome Odunze, Charbonnet, who I picked in the 11th round, Cam Ward in the 12th, Michael Penix Jr. in the 13th, Tank Bigsby in the 14th, and Braylon Allen in the 15th. I think I like the value I got out of Nico Collins and Christian McCaffrey, both in the 3rd and 2nd round, respectively. So, Knack, what does your team look like?
Yeah, so I picked from the 9th position, and I went 3 running backs to start in Jameer Gibbs, Derrick Henry, and Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor. Then I solidified my first QB in Baker Mayfield. Took a couple of wide receivers in Devonta Adams and DJ Moore. Then I went with a little bit of value here in the late 7th round and took my tight end in Travis Kelce. Followed that up with Calvin Ridley. Took my second QB in Fields. Then went Golden and J.K. Dobbins. Took my third QB in Bryce Young. Then went with Jaden Blue. Isaac Tesla, and then went with a 4th QB. Don't usually do that, but obviously, if you keep looking and you have 2 on bye the same week, it's probably best to take 2. And then finished it off with the Steelers defense in the final round and opting to not take a kicker.
I think I have a better team than you, Knack. I'm not going to lie.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
But
my running backs are going to get 60 points every single week at a minimum. At a minimum.
That gives you guys a little purview of what to do in your 2QB Superflex leagues. Knack, any final words, any final thoughts in terms of strategy for listeners who are entering their drafts this weekend?
Yeah, I would just say play the board. Play it how it falls to you and always pick with value. Just because, 5 QBs go off the board doesn't mean you have to rush and take a QB, because just think those guys there will not be taking a QB probably on their next turn. So you could, probably wait and then grab that value. So that's pretty much what I did with my first 2 picks in Gibbs, Henry, and then Taylor, because the value was just there. I didn't like a wide receiver in the 3rd round and decided, hey, now I'm going to have the best running back in the league by far, the best top 3 that anyone has. It's not even I don't even think it's close if I'm looking around here. Maybe team 3 that had Robinson, Irving, and Cook, but even at that, like Gibbs, Henry, and Taylor, I think those are top 10 numbers for all 3 of them, right? So that would be my advice, is just play the board, let the board fall to you, and don't overdraft. And if you really want a player, you might have to, pay up for him, but I would just say draft value.
Yeah, and like in your case, you drafted like a future Hall of Famer in Adams, DJ Moore, who's proven 1,300-yard player, Calvin Ridley, who's proven 1,300-yard player. So where you were at, I think you made the right choice. Because you went running back first. So I think my advice is fantasy football is supposed to be fun. Draft players in fun offenses. Draft players in offenses that are going to be good, or you're going to want to follow. That's why I took T. Higgins. Cincinnati's going to, they're going to ball out. Nico Collins, Houston's going to have, I think, a really good passing season. Philly with Hurts, McCaffrey, San Francisco always is able to either run the ball or throw the ball with Kyle Shanahan. Jameson Williams with Detroit. Even a Odunze with Chicago and Ben Johnson, that's supposed to be kind of a revamped team. And then in my later rounds, maybe I'll try to get more, guys who are in teams that maybe are not as good, but they might be down quite a bit in Cam Ward and Calvin Ridley, or even Tank Bigsby. You're just taking a flyer there. But I think it's important to take players who are going to be in top offenses. And I want to reiterate Nak's point, especially in the early rounds. Don't just take a guy that you just like for the sake of it. Don't overpay just because I really like this guy. Like, is he in a good offense? Is he primed to have another good season? Is the infrastructure around that player good? Is there a new coach, new offensive line, so on and so forth? So don't overpay and draft players that are going to be in cohesive offenses. That'll do it for us. This is a super fun episode. This is one of our most important episodes of the year, 2QB and Superflex strategy. As always, you could check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Apple Podcast. Please check out our previous division previews where we go through all of the divisions to gear you up for the upcoming fantasy season. On behalf of NAC, I'm Raj. This is the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast. We will see you next week with Love Hate Week 1.
Let's go. The best. Love hate. Oh my God, I can't believe it. It's here.
It's here. Off-season content was good, but it's good to be back in the weekly flow.
Yeah, we need to get back in the fold, baby.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Goodbye.